There's a scene in Back to the Future that millions of people have watched over and over again, and almost nobody noticed it. Not the editors, not the crew, not even the director. That IT made it through post-production, past the final cut, and straight into one of the most beloved films of all time, completely untouched. And the crazy part? Once you know what to look for, you'll never be able to watch that scene the same way again. But here's the thing, this isn't just one little slip. Back to the Future is one of those movies that looks absolutely flawless on the surface. The timing, the humor, the effects, it all feels like a perfectly built machine. Like every single frame was planned down to the last detail, except it wasn't, because underneath all that movie magic, hiding right there in plain sight, are moments the filmmakers never meant for you to see. Real mistakes, raw footage, scenes that were supposed to be caught, and weren't. That so today, we're slowing things down, pausing, rewinding, and taking a much closer look at the blooper that slipped through, and all the other secrets hiding right behind it. Let's go. Before we get to the good stuff, let's talk about why this even matters. Back to the Future came out in July 1985. It was directed by Robert Zemeckis, written by Zemeckis and Bob Gale, and it starred Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly, a teenager who accidentally travels back to 1955 in a DeLorean time machine built by his eccentric scientist friend, Doc Brown, played by the brilliant Christopher Lloyd. The film became the highest-grossing movie of 1985, pulling in over $381 million worldwide. It won an Academy Award. The theme song, The Power of Love by Huey Lewis and the News, became a top 10 hit. And in 2007, the United States Library of Congress selected it for preservation as a culturally significant film. That's not a movie. That's a phenomenon. And because of that status, because so many people love it so deeply, every single frame has been studied, rewatched, and discussed for nearly 4 decades. Fans have caught continuity errors, anachronisms, prop mistakes, and editing slips that most people would never even think to look for. But even among all those discoveries, there's one particular scene, one moment, that stands above the rest, because it wasn't just a prop in the wrong place. It wasn't just bad lighting. It was a living, breathing human being caught on camera in a film that was supposed to be about someone else entirely. And it's been sitting right there this whole time. Here's where things get interesting. You remember the opening of the first film. Marty walks into Doc Brown's garage. He's surrounded by clocks, dozens of them, all ticking away. He spots Doc's giant wall-sized amplifier, grabs his guitar, cranks every single knob to maximum, and plays one single power chord. The speaker explodes. Marty flies backward across the room and crashes into a bookcase. It's a perfect scene. Funny, bold, and it immediately tells you everything you need to know about Marty McFly's character. But go back and watch that scene again. Look closely. Not at Marty. Not at the amplifier. Look at the small details happening around the action. See, what most viewers don't realize is that the movie you're watching didn't always have Michael J. Fox in it. Originally, a different actor, Eric Stoltz, was cast as Marty McFly. Stoltz spent over a month filming scenes before director Robert Zemeckis made the difficult call to recast the role. Fox was always the first choice, but he had been unavailable due to his commitment to the TV show Family Ties. When Fox came in, most of Stoltz's footage was res hot. Most of it, not all of it. There are moments in the final film, scenes where the camera pulls back just far enough, where the lighting is dim enough, where you're not actually watching Michael J. Fox at all. You're watching Eric Stoltz. The most well-known of these is the parking lot chase sequence at Twin Pines Mall, when Olympians are chasing Marty in the DeLorean. The shots that show the driver at a distance. That's Stoltz behind the wheel. The scenes were shot before the recasting and kept in the final cut because the driver's face isn't clearly visible. But here's what's wild about that. IT means that in one of the most iconic sequences in the entire film, the moment Marty first travels back in time, you are literally watching a different actor play the role. And for nearly 40 years, most people never noticed. That's not just a blooper. That's history hiding inside a movie. Now let's talk about another blooper that fans in 2024 and 2025 are still actively discussing online. And it's one of the sneakiest continuity errors in Hollywood history. You know, the Save the Clock Tower flyer. It's one of the most important props in the entire movie. A woman hands it to Marty in 1985. He holds on to it. Later, his girlfriend Jennifer writes a note on the back of it. And eventually, Marty uses it to show the 1955 Doc Brown exactly when the lightning will strike, which becomes the key to getting him home. That flyer is in a lot of scenes. And if you watch carefully, you'll catch something that the editing team completely missed. When the woman from the Hill Valley Preservation Society first hands the flyer to Marty, look at the back of it. The note that Jennifer writes, the one she scribbles down later in the movie, is already there. The writing is already visible on the back before Jennifer ever picks up a pen. Read that again. The note exists before it's written that a time travel movie accidentally featured a prop from the future in a scene set before that future happened. You genuinely can't make this up, and that's not all. Watch the flyer throughout the film. In some shots, it's smooth and pristine. In others, it's crumpled and worn. It flips back and forth between takes, almost like the prop team was handing Marty a different version of the same flyer depending on which day they were filming. For a movie about the dangers of changing the timeline, the props department was doing a little time traveling of their own. That here's one that flew over most viewers' heads. But the second a guitarist watches this movie, they see it immediately, right back to that opening scene. Marty walks up to Doc's enormous CRM 114 amplifier. He turns it on. He cranks the gain. He cranks the overdrive. Then he plugs the cable into the amplifier, and then plugs the other end into the guitar. Now, if you play guitar, you already know exactly what the problem is. You never, and I mean never, connect a guitar to a fully cranked, powered-in amplifier that way. Every musician knows. You plug both ends of the cable in first, then you turn the amp on. Why? Because the moment a live cable touches an active guitar jack, it creates a loud pop, or in the case of an amp cranked to maximum, potentially blows the speaker entirely. The movie even shows this. The speaker blows right after Marty plays his chord. But technically, the explosion should have happened the second the cable touched the guitar, not after the chord. The sequence of events is backward. Now, the filmmakers may have done this intentionally for dramatic effect, because watching someone plug in a cable isn't exactly cinematic. But it's also possible that nobody in set that day actually played guitar. Either way, it's been a talking point in musician circles for decades, and it's one of those blink-and-you'll-miss-it details that makes watching the film genuinely fun. This one takes a second to wrap your head around, but stick with it, because it's one of the most baffling continuity errors in the movie that I end the film. Marty McFly has a video camera. He brings it to the parking lot of Twin Pines Mall to document the first-time machine test. At one point during the recording, the camera slips and hangs down by Marty's side. It's pointing at the ground. He's not actively filming. Then Doc says a line, "Never mind that now, never mind that now," while the camera is clearly not pointed at him. But here's the problem. Later in the movie, when the 1955 version of Doc Brown watches the tape back, that exact line, "Never mind that now," appears in the footage. On screen, clear as day. The camera wasn't pointed at Doc when he said it, but the tape shows it was. Either Marty McFly secretly invented a camera that records audio and video from objects it's not pointed at, or someone in the editing room made a very significant mistake. Given everything else we know about this film's rushed post-production schedule, the movie's release date was pushed forward to July 3rd, which created an incredibly tight editing timeline. That second option feels entirely plausible that it's a small mistake. But it's a logical one that breaks the internal rules of the story. And for a film built entirely on the mechanics of cause and effect, that kind of error hits differently. Let's talk about the background. During the Save the Clock Tower sequence, one of the most famous scenes in the movie, there's a man in the background. He walks around the corner of a building. The camera moves. The shot cuts. And then he walks around the same corner again. Same direction. Same outfit. Same walk. He's an extra. He was probably told to walk across the background during a take. And when they did the scene again, he walked through the background again. It happens all the time in filmmaking. But it's the editor's job to catch it. And in this case, both takes made it into the final cut in the background of one of the most iconic moments of a $19 million Hollywood production. A man quietly laps himself. Fans who've spotted this can't stop pointing it out. And once you see it, you'll spend more time watching the background of this scene than the actual story. But here's one that feels almost eerie when you notice it. But there's a scene where Marty is in the diner in 1955, looking up Doc Brown's address in a phone book. The camera cuts to a close-up of a hand flipping through the pages. The hand has visible age spots. Marty McFly is 17 years old. That is not a 17-year-old's hand. What likely happened is that the production used a stand-in for the close-up shot, possibly someone from the crew or an older extra, and the details slipped through editing that it's a tiny moment, barely a second of screen time. But it's a crack in the illusion. Reminder that movie making is built from hundreds of small pieces shot on different days by different people. And sometimes those pieces don't quite match up. Nobody caught it. It stayed in the film. And now you'll always notice it. Here's something worth thinking about. Back to the Future had a $19 million budget, a talented director, an experienced crew, and multiple rounds of editing before it was released. It went on to become one of the most celebrated films of the 1980s. And yet, as you've just seen, it's filled with mistakes that nobody caught. That's not a criticism. It's actually kind of beautiful. Because it means that even in the middle of creating something great, humans make mistakes. Cameras miss things. Eyes get tired. Editors move on to the next cut. And sometimes a man quietly walks around a corner twice, and nobody in the room notices that in 2025, with digital effects, AI-assisted editing tools, and frame-by-frame digital review processes, you'd think these kinds of errors would be impossible. And yet, fans are still finding new things in this 1985 film. Still pausing, rewinding, and discovering that that's what makes a movie like this live forever. It's not just the story. It's the texture of it, the imperfection of it. The fact that the more closely you look, the more you find so. You've seen the blooper that wasn't edited. You've seen the flyer that wrote itself, that you've seen the hand that didn't belong to Marty. And you've seen the man who walked around the corner twice. Now here's the question. Which one of these surprises you the most? And have you ever paused a movie mid-watch because you thought you caught something, and it turned out you were right? Drop it in the comments. We read every single one. That if you caught something in Back to the Future that we didn't mention, something you spotted yourself, something your friends didn't believe until you made them re-watch the scene. Tell us. Because the best discoveries come from people like you watching closely. Hit like if this changed the way you see this movie. Subscribe if you want more deep dives into the films you grew up with. And check out the video on screen right now. Because VE got even more Hollywood secrets that were hiding in plain sight this whole time. That we'll see you in the next one.